I'm Stephanie with Medical Scribe Training Institute, and I'm here to explain my experience as a medical scribe. First of all, I am a medical scribe and I've been one for 1.5 years, doing several opportunities with a large medical scribing company. I work in an emergency department. Essentially, what I do in my day-to-day life is I follow the doctors around and I enter patients' rooms and hear each of their histories or what brings them to the ER that day. It's an in-depth description called the history of present illness, and that's the first part of the chart that I fill out. Then I stay in the room as I watch the patients give their review of symptoms, basically what symptoms they're experiencing. And I keep in mind that I'm going to be selecting specifically which symptoms apply to the history that they've presented when I'm going back into my medical chart for the doctor. Next, I watch them perform a physical exam, so that's where the doctor will actually examine the patient and get objective findings. Then finally, I leave the room with the doctor, and the doctor tells me what they think their medical decision making will be. Essentially, what's the plan for this patient? Are they going to order x-rays? Are they going to order labs? What comes next? What does the doctor think that it could possibly be? What are the differential diagnoses? Maybe the person came in with chest pain and there's differential diagnoses of costochondritis or myocardial infarction. It can stretch all across the board what that might be, and the doctor is going to explain that to me so that I can accurately put it into the chart. So, as a medical scribe, you get really intensive training on EMR, electronic medical records. So there are different types of EMR. There's some called Cerner, there's other called Meditech, Epic, PowerChart. It's all over the board, and that's specific to the hospital that you work in. So once you're kind of, learned on these medical charting systems, then you truly learn medical terminology, what kind of problems could be at bay, and you really get the bulk of that patient care experience that a lot of you are probably looking for when you are considering becoming a medical scribe. So a little bit more about me. Because I work in the emergency department, I see several patients with the doctor every hour. Usually we see maybe 20 patients in a day, and we're a bit of a smaller hospital. So our ER is a 15-bed ER, so not a lot of people there. When there are more people in the hospital, you might have more doctors on call at once, and you'll have more scribes in the area. For me, usually I'm the only scribe working that shift because there's only one doctor, and a few PAs and NPs working during that shift. Now, the shifts I currently do are 8-hour shifts. They used to be 10-hour shifts. So sometimes schedules change and we change along with it. Training typically lasts 5 days, but it totally varies based on what kind of organization you're starting as a medical scribe with. Usually, a more senior scribe than you is going to show you the ropes. You'll shadow them a little bit, they'll teach you all the intricacies of whatever chart you're using, and then after a few days, maybe after the first day even, you're going to practice charting on your own. So that gives you that hands-on dive into what you actually need to learn when you're the one at the computer. What's really important, I found, is to be quick and efficient with your typing and make sure you're checking your grammatical errors. You don't have to be perfect at spelling to be a medical scribe, but what you do need to do is double check your spelling. Use Google whenever possible because medical terms can be very confusing, and in order to ensure you're writing the correct thing in the medical chart, you need to be double checking yourself. What I really love about being a medical scribe in an ER is that it's fast-paced. I've seen so many different procedures. I've seen some crazy life-threatening things, and I've seen some more calm and less nerve-wracking things. But either way, it's like a medical mystery comes in every day. And every patient that comes in, you don't know what could be happening to them. And you get to be side by side to the person who's figuring that out. You get a direct link to the doctor. And a lot of times that can make you very close with the doctor, which is helpful because they can write you letters of recommendations. They can teach you a lot more, perhaps even more than you're learning in school. And it just makes for a pleasant work environment. What I particularly like about being a medical scribe is the flexibility of the schedule. So for me, I work maybe 1 to maximum 3 days a week because I'm also in school. So it gives me a bit of a balance that I can work a few days, perhaps on the weekend, usually on the weekends, and then also be studying. And it's kind of like supplemental to my studying because a lot of crossover happens when I'm learning about anatomy and physiology, and then I come into the ER and I'm like, I just learned that 2 days ago and I'm seeing it in real life. I also worked as a medical scribe ambassador in Los Angeles. So after I spent about a year as a medical scribe in my small ER in Arizona, I was offered a position to spend about 3 months abroad in Los Angeles and help create a scribe training program there because of my experience already. So when I did that, I moved to Los Angeles, and my company, because they're a bigger company, was able to afford some of those move transitions, like put me into housing for the 3 months, and offer me a higher rate to work as an ambassador. So what I did there is I oriented the doctors, many of them had never used scribes before, on what we could do to make their charting lives easier. They oriented me on what exactly they wanted in their charts and how quickly they wanted their charts done, because actually this was in a children's hospital emergency department, and they wanted their charts done a lot faster than the small adult ER where I worked at. So that was an adjustment that I had to make, and I had to train my incoming scribes to make. So that was part 2, is I got to bring new people in and train them, teach them how to use electronic medical records, and really get them to be kind of the future generation of scribes, because sometimes scribing can be a temporary job for people, and that's okay. You might only be there for a year or 2 years before you move on to some further medical schooling or another career. And in that case, it's very important to make sure what you leave behind is sustainable, and it's going to help the hospital continue to run even long after you're gone. Each day I go in for an 8-hour day. Sometimes it's a 7 a.m. to 3 p.m., other times 2 p.m. to midnight, and occasionally it's an 11 p.m. to a 7 a.m., so an overnight shift. Make sure if you're doing one of those that you have kind of tools that you're going to need. Maybe that's caffeine, like coffee or an energy drink, though energy drinks are pretty bad for you, so I would not recommend that. Or maybe it just means keeping the lights on full blast and bringing a jacket, because it can get really cold at night, especially at 3 a.m. when your body is like questioning why you're still awake. Maybe that means bringing spare work so that if there's a lull in patients coming in around 3 a.m., you can work on some homework or read a book during your downtime. It all depends. These are not things I would recommend for new scribes who might have to spend the whole shift catching up on notes that they're behind on. But eventually, once you get more well-versed in the EMR and you really learn how to quickly get that information down and accurate, you'll find that you might have free time. And that's another benefit of scribing: the flexibility, the experience, and having that free time and being able to do what you want to do to make yourself a great future healthcare professional. If you have any more questions, please leave them down in the comments below. I'm happy to talk to you today through the Medical Scribes Training Institute. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button. Click the link below to visit Medical Scribes Training Institute, and learn a little bit more about medical scribing. Thanks, everybody.